Welcome to Lazer Radio. This episode is brought to you by the Lazer LifeBeam Helmet Integrated Heart Rate Monitor. With a rechargeable 15-hour runtime, connection via AMP Plus or Bluetooth technology, and helmet-mounted optical sensor, the Lazer LifeBeam is more accurate than traditional heart rate sensors without the bother of an uncomfortable chest strap. Check out the Lazer LifeBeam system at your local Lazer dealer. On today's episode, we are being joined as we transition into the cross part of the year by Rebecca Fahringer, who is going to be racing this year with the Stands No Tubes team, formerly of the Amy D Foundation team, who is now, I assume, in full training mode. Rebecca, is that correct?
Well, at this point, I feel like a teenager resentful towards their parents in regards to my coach. So yes, I am in full training mode. I'm in full coach hate mode.
Yeah, you called it torture plans. You were talking about when you were going to be getting your training plans. You said, I have to check and see what my torture plans are for this week.
Yes, everything this time of year gets a little bit stingier, and it's a little bit harder to get motivated for the workouts, but that does mean that cross is coming.
Do you have like a least favorite workout? Like, is there one thing you see on the schedule and you're like, ugh, I hate these?
I think that would be like a 2-hour recovery ride. That's the worst because it's boring. But I like the workouts that hurt the most because I feel the most productive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you don't mind like the, I don't know, running or bench jumps or whatever they have you doing. It's the boring stuff that bothers you.
Yeah, the boring stuff is bothersome. I like the stuff that I know is going to hurt a lot because during the workout, you get that sort of need for the mental push that I like to envision myself in races. And I think I felt this in a race, and I know who I was near in that race. For instance, last year, the World Cup at Jingle Cross, the most pain I'd ever felt was riding up Mount Crumpet, and I look and I'm passing Eva Lechner. And so all I can think is the more times I feel that pain in training, I won't be passing Eva Lechner. I'll be passing Katarina Nash or Katie Compton. I mean, in my dreams, at least.
Moving up to the front. That's it. You really envision a lot of racing when you're training. I mean, you picture yourself in the race with a number pinned up with riders around you. Everyone sort of deals it a different way. Like some people just listen to music and tune it out. Some people really like to, focus and I guess envision what the training is for. But you're an in the race kind of person.
Yeah, I despise listening to music. If I'm riding the trainer indoors, I need music, or if it's a long ride, I'll watch a movie. But if I'm outside, I don't have headphones, I don't have music. Yeah. I like to, put my mind in the state it's going to be in during a race. And granted, sometimes music is playing during a race, but more often I'm not paying attention to that, and I'm paying attention to my own personal hell and resenting all of the people in front of me. Why don't you just stop? Just
slow down. Let me go by. I was going to say, if you're really trying to imitate the cyclocross feeling while you're training, I'll come yell your name over and over, follow you around.
Please do. I would like that.
Scream your name repeatedly.
Sometimes I do, you encounter people on the roads, whether they're in cars or pedestrians. The pedestrians are nicer. Cars tend to yell like, what are you doing?
Sure.
When you pass a pedestrian, every now and again, they're like, yeah, you're doing really well, especially if you're climbing a hill or something and it's something you can appreciate. But normally I can only manage to look at them with confusion, like, why are you talking to me? This is a very intimate moment. Don't look at me.
I always wondered, I always wave to people on the bike path every time, no matter who it is or what they're doing. If I see someone when I'm out riding, I always wave. And I'm always fascinated by the number of people that just don't wave back. They just totally ignore you or seem to ignore you. But then I think they're probably in the box, they're probably in the middle of an interval, and waving back is probably the last thing on their mind to wave at this random stranger.
I do hope that other cyclists, if I don't wave to them, they realize it's either because I'm doing an interval or it's a really steep descent and I can't take my hands off the brakes. Yeah. But thanks, dude.
I think that's a lot of people too. A lot of people are just fearing for their lives, trying to stay upright on the bike.
Yes. Back. It's interesting, though. My boyfriend and I were just talking yesterday. When motorcyclists wave to us, wait, we have to wave to you now too?
Yeah.
Cyclists, runners, walkers, motorcyclists. Like, when does it stop?
We're all one big family, as long
We
as you're
are.
not in a
You know
car.
what? Yes, as long as I will wave to cars if that will. Actually, when cars don't make a left-hand turn in front of me, I give them a friendly wave.
Me too. I
Thank
give
you.
him a little two-fingered salute, just a little thanks for not killing me.
Yes, but of course that's after the moment of like, oh shit, do I have to stop? Do I
Yeah.
have to stop? No, no, no,
Don't
no,
go,
no.
don't go, don't go, don't go. I hope they see me.
Yes.
Yeah, totally know that feeling. It's dangerous out there. I mean, have you had any close encounters?
Uh, I think it was 6 years ago, 6 years and 3 days ago, I was hit by a car. Okay, technically, I hit the car. He made a left-hand turn in front of me,
Yeah.
and I hit just in front of the driver's side window. And
Wow.
I remember right before the impact, I just thought, oh, this is happening. Like, this is happening right now. And I had just moved to Providence, Rhode Island. I didn't know anybody. I was taken to the hospital. My mom had to fly. She just dropped me off there to go to grad school. 4 days later, she had to fly back and pick me up from the hospital. So, hey,
Providence didn't
Mom.
treat you too well, huh?
No, I was having a really good time on my own, but I missed you. So this is the only way I knew how to
Come
get your
back.
attention again.
What
Uh,
what did you study in grad school?
Geological sciences. I was
Like,
doing some projects tracking nitrogen specifically to try to locate pollution sources and seeing if we could pinpoint where pollution was coming from back to its source.
backtracking nitrogen, back
Yes.
tracing nitrogen.
Yes.
And you decided to become a bike racer instead, huh?
Literally, yes, I did.
Did you
Oh,
like were you racing in college? Like what was your I guess your path to this pro career that you have now?
in college, I did triathlons, so that was an interesting start. And it was actually after I got hit by the car that when I did manage to get back out on the roads, it was cyclists who were bringing me out there and dealing with my, post-traumatic stress flinching.
Yeah.
And it was how great that community was that I decided that I was going to be a cyclist. And it was in 2013. So at this point in 2013, 4 years ago, I literally didn't even know that cyclocross was a sport. I'd never heard of it. I had never seen it.
like
And
like 99% of most Americans, I would say.
wow, you have a really strong hope for that 1%.
Well,
No.
I mean, that's why we're doing this to grow the sport. But all right, so
Yes.
you're not a cyclist and you get out on the roads these people and then you decide I want to ride through some mud.
Yeah. You know what happens when you fall down on mud? You laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
It's it I mean it's weird, but it's this I feel like cyclocross is like the safest form of bicycle racing. You can get really nasty splinters on a track. Have you ever seen some of those splinters they pull
Oh
out of
yeah.
track athletes?
Oh yeah.
Those are gross.
They're
But
they're like 8 inches long. Those weird splinters are not to be messed with. Yeah.
no, they're not. And so, discovered how awesome cross was, and I just sort of fell in love. The irony is that I quit well, okay, I like to say I quit grad school to be a cyclist, when really I quit grad school because I had seen the light of what happiness was, and I knew that I did not see a future in what I was going to graduate with that happiness. So
Yeah.
I quit grad school and happened to fall into a year of unemployment. But the joke is, I really prematurely tried to chase that pro dream lifestyle. Hey, I just discovered the sport. I'm going to quit everything and try to do it.
I like it all in.
Yes. So then I picked up a job working at a bank and just doing odd jobs for the past couple of years to try to make the financial ends meet. And then it was just this past month that I quit all of the jobs to go all in on not just cycling, but cyclocross specifically.
Yeah. What a leap. I mean, what a leap of faith to take that dive. But this is really the perfect time for you in your career, right? Like you've raced in Europe, you had the results last year, and now it's like you just need that extra little bit to put you on the podium. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it is. It's weird because in cross you can't really train how you race, only because how can you recreate a cross course and a cross
Right.
effort off the bike? So talking now on in late August before my first race in September, oh, you could really have a great season. And all I feel is this anxiety because it could be the best season and I could win right out of the gate. Or like what happens to so many people, one day you just all of a sudden you're like, oh, getting like 10th, 15th, 20th. And sometimes it's you're having a weird season. Sometimes you just have a bad race. So I just have all of this anxiety. Now is the year where I've quit work and I just, all I can do is work hard and hope that the best happens once the season comes.
They say diamonds are made under pressure, right?
That is true. I know all about that.
You got
I'm
a little, yeah, that's true.
A coal out there.
Yeah, you got a little more pressure on your shoulders this season, but you're still enjoying cross, which is why you came to it in the first place. Yeah.
It's again, whenever I sit here, I'm like, I actually don't like cross at all. It's terrifying. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. Well, okay, let's take a step back because cross, especially as someone trying to become a pro, can be a really big bummer. Like going to race in Europe and being all alone and getting your head kicked in race after race after race. It's discouraging sometimes.
I did not think that racing in Europe was discouraging, and I didn't feel alone. I actually never feel alone in cross. Yeah, huh. I heard the horror stories about people who go overseas to race in Europe, so I specifically planned to avoid that potential downfall. When I was over there, I was working with Greg Germer, who has the Chainstay. He is I believe he's from Texas, but he's an American who went over and set up a little house in Oudenaarde, Belgium, to help cyclists who, especially when they come over from the U.S., but really anywhere, help them try to navigate foreign land. And between him and fellow racers that I recognize from racing against over here or just on TV, I didn't feel alone, and I always felt like I had a support system to reach out to. And I think I prepared well to avoid that.
That probably explains why you're still racing. That explains why you're back for another year of doing this.
Yes, that is true.
That's interesting. I think I'm part of that group that's really heard nothing but horror stories about trying to go over and basically do it yourself racing in Europe. You weren't alone. You had obviously the Amy D Foundation behind you. And places like the Chainstay make it easier, but I've heard a lot of bad things about that first couple months racing in Europe. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Came out alive on the other side.
Yeah, that is very important. I think it's also important that anytime somebody tries something new, that it's sort of at a manageable level. I mean, you said their first couple of months in Europe. So the first time I was there for 2 weeks. And the second time it was another 2 weeks. So I would have felt alone if I would have just said, all right, I'm going to go do a full season in Europe. After a month or maybe a month and a half, I would start to feel, really homesick, both for family and just being able to go and get a bagel.
Totally.
So in any time, even if you're just racing, it's hard to just say, I'm going to go out on the road and not come home for 3 weeks. That too would get really lonely. I think it's not just when you race in Europe. Whenever somebody embarks on something new, especially something as emotionally taxing as well as physically taxing as racing, specifically cyclocross racing and cycling, you've got to do it in manageable chunks. You can't build a career in a year, so you shouldn't go and try to pretend to be a seasoned professional your first year out. Take it a week at a time, a race at a time, and then a month at a time. And pretty soon a full season will come together and you'll say, hey, that was manageable.
You mentioned earlier about the sort of hit or miss nature of cyclocross and training in the preseason, where you basically said you can train all you want, but then you go out and all of a sudden you're getting 10th, and it's like, what is happening? I should be better than this. So how do you set expectations in such a wild sport where your performance can be drastically unpredictable from one week to the next? How do you decide what's what's good and what's not good enough for you?
Well, so I haven't been doing this sport very long, and I came in with a very steep trajectory because I had some amount of physical strength. It was just each race, every time I figured out how to handle turning, handle climbing, just getting on my bike faster. I was doing better and better each and every race and each and every weekend, and from one year to the next. And the end of last year was when I finally started to get affected by travel and illness and just that, like, the diminished returns of getting better. It's not like, hey, I'm so much stronger this weekend and I'm going to do better. It's like, oh man, I just somebody else was better than me on the day, and this hasn't really happened before. So coming into a whole new season, I'm still trying to figure out how to balance being realistic. Maybe I'm not going to win out of the gate, but how do I want to win, but be okay if it doesn't happen?
Yeah.
So that's something that I don't know, being a new racer, not having had to have dealt with that's fine. I didn't get the result I wanted, but I just need to go and reassess the training. Or, maybe it was equipment, maybe something else. I don't know. It could be any number of things. But right now, I'm trusting in my coach, Kyle Wolf. I don't question him. I let him know how I feel, both physically and mentally. And then he tweaks the training plan or doesn't tweak the training plan, much to my dismay. And I just have to trust in him. And, something about any sort of sport is sometimes you try something in the off season and maybe it'll pay great dividends for the racing season. And maybe sometimes it won't. I have faith that, like, all of my training and hard work from this summer is going to pay off in this season, but it's only time will tell.
Yeah. You got a coach pretty quickly then. I mean, you were under a coach. It must have been almost immediately after you started racing.
Yeah. When I was doing triathlons, I had just been training willy-nilly, and then I decided I needed some structure. So I actually bought Joe Friel's book, Your Best Triathlon, or something like that.
Yep.
And his structured training plans, I just loved. There was enough structure that I knew what to do, but then it was sort of loose enough to get creative. And then as soon as I had these questions of, like, well, I feel kind of sick today. Should I do my workout or should I not do my workout? And then you read how important recovery is. It made me realize I can't make these decisions on my own. I'm very type A. And if somebody says do something, so if I just had my own schedule in front of me, I would just do it. But being able to talk to a human being, each and every day saying, well, I'm pretty tired today. Yeah, you do have a lot of fatigue and you have an event coming up. So why don't we change your schedule today and you just have a rest day instead of your intervals? I think that is really important. Or having somebody say, no, you're learning to work through fatigue, so you have to push today.
Yeah.
I know myself well enough to know I would not go very far without a coach. And I do think it's something, if somebody just wants to ride their bike, maybe they don't need a coach. But at the highest level, I think it's important that somebody has somebody independent to help them through the process.
Yeah, I think if people are, even anyone training for a specific goal, like if you whether it's a result in a race or finishing a ride or whatever, yeah, having that outside perspective to look at your training and look at your strength and where you are and tell you, honestly, is a good thing. But a coach is also something that you really have to trust in, right? I mean, that's a huge part of your prep for this entire season, and you're putting a lot of that trust in these coaching plans. So, I mean, you're obviously in a good place with your coach, Kyle Wolf, but how does that come about? I mean, how do you put so much faith in one person and their training plans?
Fears to what would happen if I didn't trust him.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working with him for, gosh, I want to say
was he your first cross coach, like your first and only cross coach, basically?
No, when I first started racing, I was racing with the Jam Fund and working with Al Donahue. And then when I moved towards just other ventures with the foundation, I just experimented with some different coaches, and somebody introduced me to Kyle and we talked on the phone, and I appreciated how honest he was. And uh, how he said it was an iterative process and what he was willing to do to work with me. So, yeah, I really respected him. And I respected that he said, you get what you pay for. So this
Yeah.
isn't just going to be, free coaching. And that's something that I really, really stand for. You get what you pay for, or you get what you put in. So I appreciate somebody that I can develop a relationship with and, make it work for both of us.
Yeah. Speaking of coaching, you're sort of changing I don't want to say changing your role because you're still racing as a pro, but not wearing the Amy D colors, but still working with the Amy D team. Talk about your new role with the Amy D Foundation.
It's something that's sort of ever changing. I have two aspects with the Amy D Foundation right now. Sort of helping on the administrative side. I'm helping to sort of manage the cross program, helping to talk with those sponsors or potential sponsors. We're always looking for sponsors, by the way. As well as just fielding emails, working on website, breaking the website.
Trying to fix it again, breaking it again.
Yes. Anxiety in the middle of the night. Why did I have to break the website before bedtime? No.
Is there a sense of sort of giving back to the Amy D Foundation? Because obviously they were a big part of your success over the last 2 years. I don't want to say obligation, but do you feel like you're sort of paying back the organization for, the opportunity they gave you?
I do. I hope that I can help to grow the foundation as a way of giving back. I had, when you're in a relationship and you have this feeling of love, and maybe when you're when you're a kid and you're like in a relationship, or you ask someone to go out with you, you say, "Oh, I love you," because you think it's something you're supposed to do.
Right.
And then maybe you're with somebody a while longer, and then you feel like, okay, I really do love you. And then you grow. I haven't experienced this, but you grow old with somebody, or maybe it's just your family, and you do have this great feeling of devotion that the love sort of matures into. And that's this interesting process that I've had with the foundation over the years. Is when I first got involved, it was just like, oh, you're going to help me race my bike? I love you.
Yeah.
And and then it was, oh, I haven't found a team, and you're going to help me out for a second year, and you're going to, let me have some independence. Like I really love and appreciate what you're doing for me. And now looking back, I've sort of graduated from the program, and I feel this strong sense of familial love. Like
Yeah.
you can't turn your back on family, and I feel that way about the foundation. Even if I wasn't still directly associated with the Amy D Foundation, I would always be doing what I could to sort of pay it forward to the foundation. And I think there are a lot of people out there that feel that way for the Amy D Foundation, regardless of their experiences being directly related to the foundation or not. Generally, it's through a person or organization's relation with Amy herself.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said on a foundation that was built on just the spirit that a person had. And so that spirit sort of is the foundation, and the foundation embodies that. So it's impressive, just the reach that this, little foundation that's growing, what it can have and what it can do for somebody. And I do think a big part of the Amy D Foundation isn't, we're just going to let people ride their bikes. It's, we're going to help to develop these feelings of passion and responsibility in women so that they can follow their dreams, whether that's riding bikes, working in the bike industry, or just having a great time outside of their career while being able to develop their career, whatever that is. I think, yeah, it's a great full circle organization, and I'll do anything that I can to help it grow for as long as I'm around.
I liked what you said. It really was like representative of Amy. I didn't know Amy that well, but I did have the opportunity to have dinner with her a few times, and like just those 2 times sitting around a table with her and her crew, like I really felt like I was part of the family after 20 minutes of eating chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant. I was like in. I felt like I was. Yeah, they were telling stories, and I felt like I was part of the crew, which sort of sounds like what you just described, your last couple of years with the foundation, with the team, and the fact that it's still going. I mean, the fact that the MED Foundation is still active and, making a visible impact on the cross community, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely feel that as well. Being in cross and not in like a stable team for the past 4 years, I've definitely been able to see the change of sponsorship and support and how the industry is sort of changing, I guess, throughout the past couple of years. And for a young organization, a young foundation to not just survive, but almost start to thrive,
Yeah.
I think that shows a lot. And I do have to throw in that the AMED Foundation isn't something that is, it's not shielding a large sponsorship from some sort of corporation or industry. It is largely donation based. So it's a 501c3 nonprofit, and a large percentage of the programming, if not all of the programming, is supported through cash donations. And we do have industry partners such as Lazer and bikeflights.com and a couple others who definitely help with not just some cash, but product and visibility.
Sure.
And that's really, really important to have those industry sponsors. But the industry isn't at a point where it's willing to, take risks on small development programs and just say, here's a couple $100,000. Good luck.
See what happens.
As we can see, we can't even get that sort of support for large professional cycling teams in cyclocross or road or any sort of program. So to just show that the people, the fans, the supporters, that they believe in the foundation enough to just keep giving back so that the foundation in itself can keep giving back, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's the original crowd-funded team. I mean, there's this news going on with the Cannondale Drapac team right now, and people are like, oh, you could be the first crowd-funded team. Well, MED Foundation already is. That's spoken for.
Yeah, it is crowd-funded in that, we do solicit donations from crowds.
Yeah, but not
luckily,
directly
the
crowd-funded.
foundation, yeah, well, sometimes it's directly crowdfunded, but it's nice that the foundation is the title sponsor. And of course, if a large sponsor were to come in, there would always be the possibility to discuss any sort of naming. But it is nice. Like the Jam Fund itself is also funded, whether that's by donations from individuals or industry sponsors, I'm not sure, but there are development funds out there. And I think that that's a great time to have funding. When I was on the AMED Foundation, I didn't call myself a professional because I wasn't getting a salary and I wasn't getting, support from sponsors who needed marketing in the way that, some title sponsors might want to see a return on investment.
Sure.
The AMED Foundation doesn't expect return on investment. Return on investment meaning their own sponsorship investment. They want return on investment meaning, did you come out the other side of the season a better person, a better rider, a better athlete? And so that's the sort of personal return on investment. So it's not, a huge calculated monetary risk saying, oh, did we sell enough units to warrant the cost that we put into you? So on the development level, I see no problem with the structure, although it would be nice if it could be a little bit more stable, but at the start of have a contract saying, yes, you're guaranteed to get this money through.
We're getting there. So baby steps. Baby steps. I like what you said about the metric of the AMED Foundation, though. Like, what their return on investment is. It's not about impressions. It's about opportunities. Giving riders like you opportunities to go on and follow their dreams and do what they love.
Yeah,
or,
I think
think that they love.
Yes, love-hate relationships.
Yeah.
I think that a professional team, so as I'm riding professionally with Stan's No Tubes, it's my job first and foremost to put my sponsors and my title sponsors first. If they want something, it's my job to do it. But as an AMED Foundation athlete, the Amy D Foundation, from the standpoint of the athlete, is not what comes first. It's themselves. The foundation provides a platform for that athlete to speak for themselves and say, I would love to ride for this team next year, or I would love to, just be able to complete the season, whatever their individual dreams are.
Yeah.
The foundation is a platform for them to reach those dreams. So it's really great to not have the pressure of like, oh no, how many things am I going to sell this year? How many likes am I going to get on this post? And
how many times can I slip in a tubeless tire mention into my post-race interviews?
Yes, which is not actually that difficult, especially when you can say, I didn't flat at all this season.
Yep. Which will be a nice thing to say at the end of the year.
Yes, I could say it at the end of last year, so that's good.
Well, there you go. You went an entire season last year without a flat tire.
Yeah, I actually went, not even in training did I flat. It wasn't until May of this past spring that I finally flatted on tubeless, and that was on the road.
And probably just after you said, hey, I've never had a flat on these things.
Actually, it was on a cool down after a day of a stage race, and I was just rolling, and then I heard it.
We'll see. It wasn't even in a race.
No, it wasn't. It was a huge slice of like glass or something. And all I could think was, the one person that couldn't ride this line before I did and pick that up for me. How rude.
Look at this. Now I want some stands. You're already selling me on tubeless tires. It sounds awesome.
They have warned me, though, don't drink the sealant. I don't know why they warned me specifically
why
of this.
Why did they feel a need to warn you about that?
I don't know. Multiple occasions, though. Don't actually drink the sealant.
Do they warn other athletes, or is it just you?
I don't know. I do really like to eat, so
they thought maybe, I don't know, maybe in a post-ride bonk when you're just looking to get some calories back in, maybe you accidentally grab the sealant. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what was going through their head. Hey, so on your flat tire free season, what is your schedule like? What are your big goals? I assume Europe is in the cards for you again.
Oh man, I think about my potential schedule each and every day.
Yeah. And
what I think about my potential schedule changes every day. The first block here in the US is huge. We have C1 after C1 and 2 World Cups.
Yep.
So, I mean, like, I would love to race Cross Vegas, but it's on a Wednesday sandwiched between 2 World Cups. So I can't do it. I just can't.
Yep.
But I will have 5 weeks nonstop, and then, a questionable amount of time that I don't think I will utilize to go to Europe, because then comes a big week of racing in the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest, which includes continental championships.
Mm-hmm.
And then through the end of November, there's not much racing in the US until you get to nationals. So it'll be based on how I'm going and where the budget stands as to whether or not I go to Europe during that time. Because last year I went over and I got tired and I got sick and I came back and I couldn't quite perform and I never really recovered. So if I'm going really well, maybe it's worth it to go hit some World Cups over there.
Yeah.
But if I'm running a little flat or finding some things I need to work on, maybe it'll be some time for training, because I would love to do well at nationals. I think that's one of my prime goals this year. And then after the stress of nationals, I'm hoping to make the world's team again. So then after nationals, go maybe over to Europe at that point, race the late season World Cups, hit worlds. And what I'm secretly excited for is the January, February block of Belgium racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of an overlooked block of racing. Like I think after nationals and worlds, people sort of tune out, but there's a lot of good racing that goes on late in the season over there, I guess we should say.
There is. And I definitely never overlook it. I always watch it as it goes on.
Yeah. And
I know my feeling every single time I'm watching it, which is, how the hell are they doing this?
How do you still have any fitness at this point?
Well, as I sit on the couch with my cup of coffee and my plate of waffles with every muscle hurting from the past, 5 months, just like, what do you feel like right now?
Yeah.
And I do think that in the US, we start a little bit earlier, going really hot and heavy with the schedule, but we're bringing some of the Europeans over here with the early World Cups. So to see, Sohner, who was over here for Vegas last year, to see her still racing in February, I was like, you're superhuman. But, this year I would love to go and do it, if nothing else, to see what it does to me mentally.
Yeah.
I think, physically, everybody's sort of in the same place and on the same playing field if they came into it in September, just like you did. But, mentally, can I handle it? I have no idea. And I'm really anxious to find out, because there's no point in coming home and sitting on my duff if I have nothing to do since I quit my job. So may as well go over.
Might as well race.
May as well race.
It's pretty cool, though, that you can race so much in the U.S. I mean, it was a big deal when Cross Vegas was the first World Cup to come to the U.S. And now we have 2 World Cup events on back-to-back weekends, which is massively cool. But, before it was oh, you have to go to Europe. And I remember the first time we had Cross Vegas, it was all the Europeans came over, and it was yeah, now you know what we deal with. Now you know what it's like to have to fly 12 hours to go race your bike. And but that's not really the case anymore. I mean, it sounds like you can really build a solid calendar, with a majority of your season in the United States.
Yeah, the weakest bit is kind of between Thanksgiving and Nationals. The racing just really quiets down. There have been some races in the South where the weather isn't quite as icky, but each and every year you hear of more popping up and more going away, because in that part of the country, I think it's just finding either the base of racers who are based there willing to go, or to find the people who are willing to fly that far for a race.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time to try to sustain cyclocross racing in the country.
And finding people to promote races. I mean, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I know I'm pretty slammed personally with family and friends and, the holidays. If you're going to promote a cross race, it's certainly a lot easier for most people who, a lot of these promoters have normal 9-to-5 jobs, right? They're not full-time race promoters. It's a lot easier to do that in September than it is, a week after Thanksgiving or 2 weeks before Christmas or something like that.
For sure understandable. And even if it's not your own ability to plan, it's finding reliable people who are committed to the work during that time. Because, it's not just the promoter, it's the promoter herding all of the cats that that make everything else come together.
Which I gotta say, cross promoters probably are probably the hardest working of any of the cycling disciplines out there. I think putting on a cross race has to be the hardest type of race to put on. A crit, you close down the roads, put up some fence, whatever. But a cross race just requires this massive infrastructure to have a cross course. I mean, it's the stakes and the tape and everything.
Yeah, there are a lot of logistics that go into it. And I was actually thinking about that when I'm thinking about these Europeans coming over, and just thinking Jingle Cross, there's 3 days of racing, and to have them have their tent set up for the 3 days, in Europe, I think it's mostly just 1 day at a venue. Of course, the venue is set up for a longer period of time than ours are likely. And, it might even be they have some massive stakes there. They're not even stakes. They're entire cows going into the ground. It's they have. I thank you. It's they're growing little trees to make the course.
Are they wood stakes? We use a lot of the plastic stakes here in the U.S. Right?
I didn't see a single plastic step-in stake when I was there. They seem to all be those 2-3 inch diameter wood posts. They hurt really bad when you hit them. I was just going to say,
that sounds like fun to run into.
Yes. And a lot of, not the snow fencing, but the netting that needs to be rolled up. So it looks like it's, not quite as disposable as a lot of the U.S. courses. But either way, what I was getting at is, so these Europeans, the thing is, they see everybody racing on the course over so many days. And I was just thinking, do they understand that the only way that in the US we can recoup the costs to put on the race is through the registration funds? And that's not just what it costs for the elites and the pros to register, the pros paying to race, which is foreign concept to them, literally.
Yep.
But we need the masters races. We can't disparage the fact that these people wearing in our race lines are also the people paying the registration fees to help us not just race on the day, but hopefully race for a prize purse. And kudos to Trek, by the way, speaking of prize, for stepping up and paying men and women equal during their World Cup day. That is huge. So the Trek weekend aside, I could win 2 World Cups and still not equal a man winning one.
That's messed up.
Women, we are getting paid like 1/3 of what men do in the World Cup prize purses. So for what Trek is doing is really, really big. And I hope that next year, all U.S. World Cups can follow suit and pay equal, even though that's asking a huge step up. That's not like a C2 paying equal where they have to come across an extra $1,000. It's an extra like $20,000, $30,000. It's huge.
Well, in my view, if you have the money to host a World Cup, you should have the money to pay equal prize lists for men and women. It's not cheap to host a World Cup. So, yeah, exactly.
No, it's not. I think that the international governing body should say, if you have the money to host anything, you have the money to be equal. And I don't want to outwardly say this, but I'm going to outwardly say it because it's in my mind. It would be so nice if the men could step up and say, you know what? We're willing to take less money to make sure the women get equal. Yep. And that would be an impossibly hard thing to say because men are trying to make it just like the women are. But I just wish there were a way that, short of the women showing up on the start line and just not going anywhere, like how else can we say it's time for us to get equal payout? Like, we'll race equal. We'll do what we can to bring extra eyes and spectators in. But it's this terrible cycle of we can't make a living, so we can't quit our jobs, so we can't be considered professionals because we can't earn the same money. And
chicken or the egg, right?
It is. It's the chicken or the egg.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in, but I think a lot of it comes from sort of a lack of a unified voice. Like you talked about, what are you going to do? Go sit on the start line and not start? There's no, I don't want to say riders union, but a women's union of riders that can sort of band together and say, hey, we're not going to race unless we get this, this, and this. Which, the things that you guys are asking for are far from even a demand. I mean, it's not a radical thing to ask for equal prize lists or, race the same amount of time or little things like that. But do you think having the riders all on the same page, men and women, I mean, same thing with the men, if you ask the men to take a prize cut, that seems like something that everyone would have to be on board with. If there was some sort of group of riders, do you think that would make it easier for you guys to create equality? I mean, to demand those things?
I think so. I feel like I saw somebody on some form of social medias talking about riders' unions and different athletes outside of cycling that did have unions. And I had never really thought about it, but I definitely think if the groups of us were to be able to band together and stand for the same thing in the same way, some traction might be had. But I mean, the question is, you hear so many arguments against equal pay, such as, people don't watch the races, or if you watch, like, people don't show up to watch the women race, and you don't race for an equal amount of time. You hear all of these arguments, and I'm even starting to get to the point. Am I asking too much to ask for equal payout? Like, do I not
please
deserve
don't
it?
think that.
Like, it's
please don't get to the point of thinking that.
It's getting to that point, and I really hate to even question if I have a right to feel that way. It's like, wait, am I being demanding? And does that just mean that they are winning, whoever they are? I don't know.
Man.
Having existential crises here.
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. It's like you don't want to ask too much, and you're thankful just to be racing your bike, right? And you don't want to.
Trust me, I understand that all of us, men and women, we are extremely lucky to be able to not just race our bikes, but hopefully race our bikes to some sort of lucrative end on our own, but
Yeah.
also know that it's not just we're people having fun. Like I go through hell day in and day out, whether that's really painful intervals or not having that third piece of cake. Like there are a lot, there are a lot of sacrifices being made. And
Yeah.
we talked about the holidays earlier. Every year, my mother has these very emotional emails, texts, and phone calls. So, are you just coming home for Thanksgiving this year or Christmas? Just one of them. No,
Yep.
mom, I have to stay home and train, or I
Yep.
have to go and race. Like, I give up family time for the holidays. I give up, like, I don't go travel for weddings, and I make all of these sacrifices. And it's not just to do well for my own good, it's to represent my sponsors and my teams and hopefully put in the work that they think is deserving of putting their product, underneath me or represented with me so that I can do it justice.
Yeah, it's part of being a pro. I think people think like, oh, you get to ride your bike all the time. That sounds like an awesome job. But, just like when you go into the office and you have to bang out a spreadsheet that you hate, that's just like going out and doing intervals. Like you get this stack of assignments from your coach and it's like, do this thing that you hate and you have to do it because that's your job. I mean, you're a pro. It's not all fun and games being a pro bike racer.
Yeah. It's funny now, I've had, let's see here, 25 days of quote unquote unemployment.
Fun employment. We're going to call it fun employment.
If that's what you want to call it. It has been the most stressful. Sometimes I look at my training calendar and I'm like, oh, I don't even need to turn on the computer today because I got a lot of training to do. And, 9:00 you start training. And then the next thing you know, it's 6. And it's like, I wasn't even on my bike. Where did the time go? It's like, oh, it's stretching, it's lifting, it's eating, it's making these right decisions. And then you're like, oh, I didn't turn my computer on and now I have so many emails and why are they happening?
I got to do this podcast and this guy wants to talk to me. Did you ever think that you would be an unemployed bike racer? I mean, for someone to, go to grad school and trace nitrogen back to its pollution point, you seem like, I mean, you I don't want to say you don't now, but you had your life together, right? Did you ever think that you would be this, unemployed bike racer trying to chase a dream of being a pro?
So this is funny because when I graduated
what does
college,
your mom think of it? That's the other important question.
well, we're getting there. So we're all out to dinner and I'd graduated college and I told my parents, I was like, guys, I'm going to go to Brown University and get a PhD. My parents are like, wait a second, PhD, like people are going to call you doctor?
Yeah.
Well, maybe. At an Ivy League, that sounds like a lot of work. Is that what you want to do? And so I think they knew because parents know. They know their children, and I think they have some ability to see into the future. And that should have been my red flag. But it wasn't. My thought is, wait a second. I have never had any problems with like drugs and alcohol. I've never been arrested. I just graduated college with honors and now I'm going to an Ivy League school. Why are you questioning this? A sidebar, my brother was the first of the family to take a step into professional athletics. He was I guess kind of still is, a professional enduro racer. So That's not enduro bicycle, which I just found out was a thing like last year. I still don't really understand what it is. But on motorcycles, he's been sponsored by Gas and Husaberg, and so he was the first one to have a dream to go off and ride his bike and then ended up following. So I think my parents sort of saw that I had a dream as well. It wasn't necessarily as well formulated as it is now, or as his was since he was the age of 12. He wanted to do this professionally. But I don't know, I think that they sort of sensed that my life was going to be lacking. And then when I said I was quitting school, they supported it because they knew I wasn't happy. I had called home crying so many times. And when they talk to me, my mom's like, "You just don't sound happy." And then that's exactly what my mother sounds like too.
Your mom sounds like my mom. I think they have this universal mom voice for.
Yes. It's usually a Marge Simpson, but I didn't want to
Yeah.
do that over a podcast. um, yeah, so they were actually pretty supportive when I quit school. And what was really, really sort of made them very supportive of me pursuing the cross stream is when they first came to see me. I think it was at the Cincinnati race, because my parents are in Dayton, Ohio. So when I was in Cincinnati 3 years ago on the Amy D Foundation team, riding underneath the Raleigh Clement squad at the time, they came and they saw there's like 6 easy ups in a row, and there's
Yeah.
like 87 bikes on racks, and they're all matching, and it's a place full of hustle and bustle. And I was like, this is the team that I ride with.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, this is
It
legit.
all looks very professional.
Yes. And I mean, John Kellogg is a great guy, and he runs a really tight ship, and it was great to sort of learn under him. And yeah, so they became really supportive. And once they saw that it was sort of a legitimate thing, facade or not, to to fall into professionally. And then not only that, but I was finding success kind of early. They became really, really supportive. In knowing that that's what my parents saw me racing with, and that's what they're supporting, makes me really excited to now be managing this Stands No Tubes presented by Maxis team. And the Stands No Tubes team has kind of existed for, I think, around 7 years under a couple different managers, Jake Wells most recently, and now myself. And each year it's like trying to grow and trying to grow. And I really hope that, especially now that the name has been on the scene for so long and we're showing that the tubeless technology can perform at the highest levels, that we get increased sponsorship, in this Stands No Tubes presented by Maxis team can live at the same level as the Raleigh Clements or the Clements in the Cannondale teams.
Yeah.
I want there to be big teams in cross that people are drawn to, that they're fans of not just riders, but the teams. And, people that don't know about the sport can walk into the team tent area and go like, whoa, this is so cool, instead of just, hodgepodge easy ups or people to vans. I mean,
the same reaction that your parents had, like when they see the compound and they see all the bikes and they're all clean and lined up on the rack, and there's a mechanic and everyone's on the trainer, and like, it feels like a compound. It definitely gives it that feeling of a professional sport.
Yes. I think it's really important for not just, I want sponsors to be able to back athletes, but I also want fans and sponsors to get behind the idea of teams. Because if you have a team, then it's not on a single individual to perform, because we're human beings. We get sick, we get preoccupied, we have slumps. But if you have a team that is always, putting out good athletes and professional auras, and, it's sort of a concerted effort to back this, the team, not this rider and this rider and this rider and this rider and this rider. I think it's going to be easier for sponsors and fans and everybody to support the industry, which is what it's all about, is supporting the industry, selling bikes, selling tires, selling wheels, selling components, so that we can all put money back in and race our bikes to put product out. I think that that's sort of what sport is missing.
One day there'll be a mom that comes and sees the Stands No Tubes team setup and says, you know what, daughter, you should quit school and race for this team.
That is my job. My goal is to get every young girl out there to quit school.
Get young women to drop out of grad school and chase the dream of being a pro bike racer.
School's for fools.
Not true, because there are a lot of successful collegiate bike racers too. We were talking with Eric Aller last week, even in the cross program. I mean, we're now seeing a lot of the collegiate programs roll up with a bus full of kids to nationals. And, like 20 kids pile out from Marion or Lindenwood or CU or whatever. It's cool to see so many, collegiate racers racing as well.
I think that the future of most sports is not just at the high school, but especially the collegiate level, because anybody who's even finding a sport in college, they still have the time to develop and they may not necessarily have burned out. And plus, I think that sports are really important throughout all of school just to give somebody a release, you know?
Yeah.
It's great to have something to strive for other than be the first one to read that book. I don't even know what you do in school anymore. It's been too long.
The 4.0 GPA that no one will ever ask about in your life.
I know. Did you know that they don't even print that on your really expensive diploma?
Oh, I learned that after I got the 4.0. They didn't tell me that at the beginning of college, but
rude.
You win some, you lose some. I had a fun 4 years in Athens, Ohio. That's all that
Whoa,
matters.
you managed to do it in 4? That's impressive.
Yeah. Actually, it was 4.5. So funny story. My senior year, I failed public speaking. It was the first year that I was asked to announce at the Amgen Tour of California. I got the call up to be the stage announcer for Tour of California. I was a senior in college, and I was all pumped. But the Tour of California fell during finals week, and the only class that wouldn't let me reschedule my final was public speaking. And I ended up failing it because I was busy speaking publicly at the Tour of California to thousands of people. But yeah, so I had to finish my public speaking. It was like Comms 103 or something at CUNY in New York City because I'd moved to New York already. And so yeah, technically I was 4.5 years or 4.25 after I failed public speaking.
And you say 4.0 because once you fail, they don't even bother to record that, right?
Well, it was like, I think you can drop one, or there was some weird.
I see. Now this little asterisk comes out, so it's probably good they didn't put it on your diploma.
Yeah, my tainted academic record. It's really been following me around my entire career, haunting me.
Oh my God, that is one of the funniest stories I've heard all day, and it's not even noon yet, so there's still time for it to be topped. But that's really
there's still hope, kids. Even if you fail your favorite subject in school, you can still be a professional at it one day.
That's true. Actually, I really enjoy this because the only B I got in high school was in health class. And it was the same teacher where we spent a couple weeks talking about bicycle fitness. And I was like, I don't even know what you mean, bicycle fitness. You have to ride on the right side of the road? That doesn't make sense.
And now you're probably the healthiest person from your high school.
Actually, this is funny. My 10-year high school reunion was supposed to have happened last weekend back in Dayton, Ohio, but it was canceled due to lack of interest. And I was just saying, man, I kind of wanted to go only to show people that I didn't get fat yet.
Yeah. You'd have a hell of a story to tell. You've had quite the journey since high school.
That is true. All my friends would be like, so you always post all these biking pictures on Facebook. What's with that?
Are you like a biker? Pro biker? My favorite term in the world.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day. I was actually, I was at a bank and setting up an account, and she was like, so what do you do? And I was like, I'm a cyclist. And she was like, what?
No, for money. What do you do?
I'm a bicyclist. What does that? I ride bicycles? I still don't know what that means. It's okay. I don't either. Let's just put down I'm self-employed.
I'm just going to put other. I'm just going to mark other here.
Others. They're an other box. Great.
All right. Well, we got to wrap it up there. I know you got to train today, right? You probably still have to get your ride in.
There is a bit of a hellacious thing on the training schedule for today. I was kind of hoping that this would get put off all day, and then maybe it would start raining. I'd be like, oh, I can't do it. But turns out the sun's out, and now I have to go do things.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Kyle today. He said you can only have her for an hour because she's got to get out there before it starts raining.
Damn it. I really got to stop showing him everything that I do in life.
Blame your coach.
I blame him for a lot.
Hard to believe that you pay him to do this, huh?
I know. It's really upsetting. Sometimes I text him in the middle of a workout, and I go, can I get a refund? This one isn't feeling good. It's actually hurting.
Unfortunately, not how that works.
No, it's not.
Well, Rebecca, thanks for joining us today. Sorry you still have to work out. I apologize for the imminent training in the next 4 hours of your life, but you signed up for it.
I did. We'll see if it's worthwhile in September.
Yeah, The moment of truth, right? What is your first race? Like, what's your first sort of test?
It is going to be Rochester, the 9th and 10th in Rochester, New York.
Which I think, is that the first UCI race in the U.S.? Or Nittany Lion Cross? Is that first?
Rochester is the first. I don't want to say this for fear of being wrong, but I thought that Nittany was not going to happen this year because of the World Cups, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
That sounds right. I think I heard that too.
Yeah.
I'm not a stickler for facts like you, so I'm just gonna let that float out there.
I just let these blanket statements go of like, I'm probably wrong on this, but and then nobody can get me later for lying.
Yeah,
so
I assure you, someone on the internet will correct us if we're wrong once this is posted. So,
what did we do before the internet? I don't know.
Yeah, we were wrong. We just
so many fallacies. Who knows?
People were wrong.
We're probably wrong about being wrong, and then somebody's going to say we're wrong.
Can't wait. You can find me at Brad Sohner, and Rebecca is at Ride Far. What's your Twitter handle?
Go Far.
Go Far. GOFAHR, right?
True.
That's it.
Yeah. Go tell us we're wrong on the internets.
Hit us up. Let us know what we're wrong about. Rebecca, thanks for joining us again. Really appreciate it. And best of luck this season. Looking forward to seeing you in the Stands and No Tubes kit.
Thanks, Brad. Look forward to showing it out to the world.
This has been another episode of Lazer Radio. Be sure to check out more great shows on the Wide Angle Podium Network. Until next time, I'm Brad Sohner, saying thanks for listening.